This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. This is episode 40. I'm on the satellite tip. Had some errands to run. Wasn't going to be able to get in the natural boot. So my voice don't sound as crystal clear and as nice as it usually sounds. But I'm here on that train, keeping it going, providing the American people the information that they need. I hope all of y'all are doing well. As I said, we're episode 40, 12 away from a full year of doing this through YouTube. So I appreciate the fact that, I've had listeners throughout this process. So I'm going to keep trying to spit out content and give you guys, obviously I'm assume is what you're enjoying because you're tuning in. If there anything else extra that you like for me to cover, let me know. I don't mind. Now, okay, I don't mind, but, there's certain things I'm probably not going to cover. Okay. All right. So, with all that being said, let me dip into things on my mind. First thing I want to talk about is I keep hearing I'm listening and, watching sports and stuff talk. And I keep hearing a number of pundits or, people who talk about these sports, these talk shows. They keep referring when they're talking about Colorado. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because, obviously Colorado is the talk of everything. Right now they're on fire. So anything that they touch, including Deion, Coach Sanders, I'm sorry. Anything that they touch, is blowing up, ratings and all of that stuff. So, but I know a lot of people are exhausted or hating on the fact that they're getting all this attention and they haven't won a national championship, right? But he's already exceeded what the ESPN, analytics and what a lot of analytics said they were going to project it to win this season. They were only projected to win 2.7 games. They've won the first 3 games, so you can throw that out of the window. They're probably, I would say, anywhere between a 6 and maybe 9 win team. Okay, you figure the Oregon, the USC, and the Utah games are going to be games that they're not going to be favored to win. Right now, having said all of that, the question I have is I heard one person say, "Well, the train stops this Saturday when they play Oregon. Oregon's going to blow them out. The train stops." And in my head, I kept wondering, well, what train are they talking about? I mean, do they mean that after they lose, the season's over, it's obliterated, prime time, and Colorado Buffs are a terrible team? I don't get it. I can see, look, this is going to be their toughest test, which is Oregon. Now, I'm gonna say this because I've always loved Oregon, always. Way back. I'm trying to think of the quarterbacks back then, but way back when Chip Kelly was brought them to national prominence, right? But I gave up on them. I stopped. I mean, I'm not saying I root against them. No, I'm not saying that, but I stopped considering them a factor because every time they got to the big game and they played against teams that were stronger and all of that stuff, the play calling, the way they run, and it was almost gimmicky the way some people refer to it, didn't amount to anything. They haven't won. I think they got in the national championship once. I think it was against Auburn, and Auburn won. I'm not. I have to look back at it because I'm not. It's not on the top of my head. But the point I'm making is they haven't beaten anybody when it was time to beat somebody. Now Utah beat somebody when it was time to beat somebody last year in one of their bowl games. Right now, are they or is Utah going to be good enough to get to the college playoffs this year? Who knows, right? They're going to have to beat each other up, and there's going to be a chance. But I gave up on really expecting. I guess that's what I should say. I gave up on expecting Oregon to be that dominant team that could compete and win a college football playoff, right? Like, yeah, your expectations, you're going to be good and stuff. So Oregon has blown out the first two teams they played, and I believe those teams were, I think one was a Power 5, if not mid-major, and the other one was a relatively unknown. So, yeah, they're going to beat up on teams, and they're going to put up a lot of points on Colorado. But to me, at the end of the season, you know, who's ascending and who's descending is what I'll look at. Now, I don't typically respect Oregon's defense because they've never had, I think they had 1 or 2 years where they had a really good defense. It wasn't a dominant defense, but it was a really good defense that they had. I hadn't seen them defensively, so I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Oregon either. Now, if their front seven, front five, front seven is able to get enough pressure on Shedeur, then yeah. But you've seen what they can do offensively. They're not just like, run the ball, we score a touchdown here or there. No, they slinging that thing. So it's weird at how people say the train don't stop. Look, you gotta understand, this is his first year. He hadn't even really got the talent recruiting-wise that you're gonna want from a top team. I would say he's probably gonna be somewhere between the top five and top 10 recruiting classes next year. I'd be shocked if he was if he didn't have the top 4, 5, or 6. But not to mean that he's gonna get everybody, because even if he got everybody can't play. So you got to take that in consideration. So I get that, but this whole it's really eerie. It's really weird at how some are just like, they hate what they're doing. I even heard some stuff I really don't want to get into, but I mean, Boulder, Colorado, if you look at the stands, it's mostly young white kids that go to the school. Now, on the sidelines, he attracts a lot of, celebrities, a lot of hip-hop celebrities. And, then you hear people talking about how ghetto and it's like, yo, all fan bases have, NFL players or celebrities and stuff that come and watch. He has swag. And it's very unfortunate that it's delving into another category that I'm not gonna bring up. I'll just say it's very weird, because if you say, man, you know what, it's his first year, yeah, he's gonna win some, and then that's it. That's fine. I think he's gonna win some games, but they're not a good team. They're not gonna be a powerhouse team right now. Yeah, bro, I honestly agree, and he would agree. Obviously he's gonna be confident, but. Realistically, you can have all the swag, but realization hits us all. We can have all of the confidence in the world, and the confidence will help us, but you still have to get out and play, and that's the most fascinating thing about sports. You still got to get out and play. No matter how good everybody's telling you, or you got to get on that field, on that court, or whatever, and prove that you're just as good as what they say. I just don't get why I get it. And it's like, I get it, but I don't understand why it's so maddening to people that Colorado is actually a relevant team. And then it's like all the other coaches, not all, but a lot of other coaches have, chimed in and made little comments. And, when a person says they keep receipts, it doesn't necessarily mean that those receipts are kept for right then. I got receipts on people who were very, disrespectful. Those are lifetime receipts, in my opinion. It could be 15, 20 years from now that I get to use those receipts for whatever it is. So if there's a team that's like, okay, there was Oklahoma who made some comments about him. about the coach and the portal. And some of these coaches turn around and say, oh, well, they weren't talking about Deion. They was talking about the portal. Nah, because the portal been around. Portal just gotten worse. So now all of a sudden it's an issue that he did something that was unconventional. He did something different. Okay? He changed the way things were done. Shouldn't be wrong with that. Don't hate him. Hate the fact that it's able to be done. And now you got to worry about, your players trying to go play for him. But Oklahoma won't play Colorado this year unless, maybe they hypothetically they both get to the bowl game or to a bowl game and they play each other, or they get to the college football playoffs. But it doesn't mean in a year or two they can't find themselves playing them. Right? So this whole notion that this train's going to stop, talk to me in 3 or 4 years. I'm not saying he's gonna beat and won a national championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if year 3, he gets the talent, because he's admitted that there are a couple of positions that he needs to have dogs in, and he doesn't have them right now. And those players are playing their heart out, and he loves them for it, but. There's a difference. There's just a talent gap with certain positions and stuff, and he's going to be looking to fill that. So I really don't understand. I'm honestly going to have to just try to reach out to somebody that just really negative and just ask them because my wife always tells me this, we'll be having a discussion. Sometimes it's a little bit of an argument about stuff with life. But then she'll look and she'll say, yeah, baby, but how does that affect you? And then I'll be like, yeah, okay, yeah, it doesn't affect me. I have to just admit that it didn't affect me. So, when I know it doesn't affect me, you get passionate about stuff, and as fans of your fan bases, you feel like your team is the best. I get it, but only one team is going to be the best year after year. We can't all be the greatest teams, right? So if you're 11-4 and you win a bowl game and you're throwing up the one sign, does that mean that you won one more game? Because you're not the best team if you're not undefeated, and if you're undefeated and you're not playing for the national championship, then how can you ever can say you're number one? The only sport that there's always a definitive is obviously in the pros, but we're talking college basketball. Everybody gets in that tournament. There are some that don't get in, but they didn't do enough to warrant them getting in. But there's nobody saying this team was in, they would win. Now, everybody who's in there, at some point, you're going to play against somebody, and if you win, you win. UConn won. They were the best basketball team out there. So that's all it is. I hope I don't have to talk as much about this going forward, but I think it's going to come up again because people are watching. People are paying attention to how you're responding and what you're saying, and it's okay to. I'm not saying you can't have an opinion or you can't disagree or you can't make your argument, but it's different. With what I get it. People are tired of hearing about Deion in Colorado. I get that because they weren't, and it was, they're going to get spanked by TCU and you'll see that they're not a good team. They beat TCU. Well, Nebraska's going to have their, okay, they beat them. Now, their favorite, and they had to come back from it. And I'm not going to even get into all of, the play and stuff, some of the, stuff that was going on. But they turn around and beat them. They come back. It's a rivalry game. And the first thing somebody says is, well, yeah, they were favored by 20, but they had to come back in overtime to win. Do you know how many I'm going to use my words. Do you know how many games I can point to in the last 2 years where a team was heavily favored, and then when they played each other because it was a rivalry, the game went down to the wire or overtime? It happens all the time. So why is this team being, scrutinized for playing in an emotionally charged game, right? So that's all I got for that. Let me move on. So I have a question for offensive players in football, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, and even quarterbacks. Why don't y'all protect the ball better after y'all catch or run? I mean, y'all should know by now that defenders are coming from behind to punch the ball out. It wasn't a thing until maybe, 90s, 2000s. It became, not 90s, maybe late 90s into the 2000s, since 2000. It's become a thing where it's more of an art, where you strip the player from behind when they're running. Why don't you guys wrap up more? Especially if it's bad weather. I saw, here's one of those words, I saw a plethora of receivers and running backs and some quarterbacks running for plays, running for yards. The receivers after catch, running backs and stuff, they running through the line. They get their, to get their opening. They're running downfield. And you see somebody come from behind and poke the ball out. You see somebody running through and they're trying to fight off with one hand, and in the other, somebody's knocking the ball out. Why aren't y'all protecting the ball? You know it's a thing. It blow, like, I almost think you should be sat down if you let somebody strip you from behind when you run, because you know they're coming. And as a defensive player, I've seen defensive players. I said it as if I was a defensive player. I've seen defensive players will give up an extra 5 to 10 yards instead of trying to tackle them. They're trying to knock the ball out. And so you saw it in these first two games in the NFL, and not as much as I've seen it in college, but more in NFL. I saw it these first two games. Balls getting knocked out. Players not protecting the ball. So I just want to know why. Because it's evident that that's something, and you watch film, and there are teams there are defensive teams that look, they're trying to punch the ball out. They're going to, you catch the ball. Once you pass them, you got to watch out because they're coming from behind, trying to strip the ball. They're not trying to tackle you. Some will actually try to grab you, hold you up while the second player comes in and punches the ball out. So you need to be better at that because you hurt your team. All right, next, I'm going to go into something. It's always been brought up, and yeah, of course it doesn't affect me. So I know as I bring these things up now, that's always going to be in my mind. Well, how does that affect you? All right, so what I want to talk about is Philadelphia Eagles game against it was New England Patriots. Was it New England Patriots? Yeah, New England Patriots. No. Was it Minnesota? Oh, this is their last game. Let me look it up while I'm looking up. Well, what I want to talk about is Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. They had a little incident on the side. Yeah, it was against the Vikings. Okay, they had a little incident. A.J. Brown seemed to be upset that he wasn't, getting either any touches or certain touches. Maybe, now look, I wasn't on the field, so I don't know exactly what he was upset about. It appeared like maybe he was upset that he wasn't getting the enough touches. And Jalen was talking to him, and they were arguing, and yeah, that kind of stuff happened. So it's not that I have a problem with that. I will tell you what I saw right afterwards. Within the next 6 plays, 3 of those were going to A.J. Brown. Now, one of them, I think, almost got intercepted. One of them was a catch for a touchdown that ended up coming back, right? So he went to him. Yeah. The issue that I'm bringing up is I felt like it hurt them and the rhythm and the team and where they was clicking, because they were killing Minnesota on the ground. they were gashing him. Especially that play series, they were gashing him. And A.J. Brown should be smart enough to I'm not saying he's dumb, y'all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should know that they're scheming to take away things from you. So if a defense just says, well, we'll lose, but we'll lose by y'all running the ball and scoring touchdowns. But we're not going to lose with A.J. Brown and the other kid who had a really good game, them catching the ball all over the place. And I've always felt like that's what happens in teams sometimes. Sometimes I think it's DeMario Smith is the other receiver. Devontae Smith. Okay, Devontae Smith. I think, you have to know that. In a running game, if you're playing against a real stout defense, you probably going to get some touches, but you're not going to be able to get where you want to go. They're going to have to throw the ball to soften up, the run game. Just like you got to run the ball to soften up the pass game sometimes. But in any game, it's a team. So if you're a team, it shouldn't matter really who's getting the ball unless the quarterback is intentionally not going to you. And, I heard a couple of receivers say, you have to get them a ball early to keep them engaged. And that bothers me. I really stick up for players, but I really think that is such a selfish thing to say. You have to get them the ball early to keep them engaged. So, like, if you don't get the ball early, does that mean you just are out on the field, you don't block? Your body language is such that you don't run the same routes? You give the defense a clue that you're not getting the ball so they can help elsewhere on a run or on a certain type of pass play that could allow, an interception? Like, for real? Can you imagine the offensive lineman? Well, we don't get the ball, so we're going to block. So how do you get offensive linemen involved early? Well, I guess maybe running the ball because they like to be smash mouth. You got to get the running back the ball early, so he stays engaged and blocks and runs his runs plays the way he's supposed to correctly. Right? I guess if the quarterback isn't engaged early with 5 pass plays, then he's not going to be happy. Man, you can't be like that. You can't be like that. And that, to me, it's the diva of the wide receivers. And at some point, it's not going to happen now because the wide receivers are more important because of the fact that the way the game is shifted with quarterbacks, right? But if the wide receivers were deemed, as unimportant as what the running backs have been, could you imagine how bad they would be acting? Well, how you gonna line up if I don't run no routes and you're not gonna be able to throw the ball? It's just weird how a player would take that stance. So, the NFL players who, ex-players who were wide receivers were coming to his defense saying you got to keep them engaged. And my response is no. Do your job. If you go back at film and see he was open, there's no doubt in the mind the play that you call, he was open, and the quarterback looks at you, knows you're open, and then goes somewhere else. Yeah, that's a conversation. And I'm not even saying Jalen Hurts did that or didn't do it. Number one, you shouldn't have that kind of conversation on the field because cameras are everywhere. And now when that stuff happens, people will bring, like I'm talking about it right now. It's not something that I want to talk about, but it's like, come on, man, y'all. I know you get emotional, and you play with people and emotional, but sometimes it's like, look, if you're gonna be mad, doing it was after halftime. It was like third, fourth quarter. After the game, get in my face in the locker room. So now there can be reports, but there's nothing to see. But he wasn't complaining that, hey, you know what? I need you to run the play this way because I want to block. I want to block really good. Nah, he didn't say that. He wants the ball, and I get it. You get touches, but it's a thing. It is a thing. Okay, now that I've vented and got on my podium, my stuff, my soapbox. I don't really know why they call it a soapbox. I think it's because back in the day there was a box that contained soap, and I guess they stood on it and preached or talked or whatever. I have to look it up, see why it's called getting on my soapbox. But in any case, let me move on to basketball ideology. All right, so first thing I'm gonna talk about is is it good for places to have tournaments for high school kids going into the months of October, November, December, and sometimes January? Talking about high school basketball. So I get, there's a showcase coming up that I'm actually going to be covering, and it's a jamboree. Now it's more of a high school teams, but it's not like a UIL in this. So the high school are putting some of their teams in, but they're not going to be coached by their high school coaches, right? So that kind of stuff, I get it. But once you really get in the season and you're playing on your high school team, should organizations still be doing tournaments? Now, I do understand there are going to be kids that don't make their high school team, and there are going to be kids that are maybe homeschool that don't play on high school, so they might have teams and stuff. That stuff I get. I just wonder, is it good to have these tournaments? Because I know some coaches, some city league coaches here are like, hey, yeah, we're trying to go to this tournament in November. And I told the parent, like, well, you really shouldn't be playing with the team, once season starts. I mean, if you want to play up until first week of the season, I get it. I would probably say, what, if your son or daughter has been playing all year, I would take that month off before season, rest my body, work. Hey, even if it means no training for that month. I've actually talked with parents and say, yeah, they need to take a break, and they don't come here for that time, and then when they're ready to come back, they come back. But that's just kind of how I look at it, right? And everybody's going to be each their own. But when you're playing and you're having these tournaments, it's weird to have tournaments and stuff. Now, middle school and elementary, I get it. Most middle schools don't start their middle school season until January. Some will start a little earlier, but I kind of get that. But high school, once high school season starts, you're like in college and pro mode. You're practicing every day. You play twice a week. You're traveling and stuff. Some teams practice 6 times a week. Others, 4 to 5. So you're going to be tired, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're playing and you're just, opening yourself opportunities to be exhausted. I won't really use the whole injury thing because you can get injured anywhere, right? So I won't use that. But just the fact that, different things can come up, I don't know. I just wonder about why are you doing it? Or why are you having it and having high school on there? Now, I know that maybe in certain parts of the country, their basketball season don't start to maybe November, December or something like that. It's different. I get all of that. But it's just really a question. I'm just wondering. I'd like to find out from an event operator why you do tournaments, why you're doing a tournament around, that season, and you're including kids that aren't going to be really able to play. So that's all that was with that. Okay, so the next thing on my basketball ideology is contact. Now, my question is creating contact different than taking contact? I tend to think it is. I'm sure people will say, no, it's the same. So here's what I mean. Creating contact is when you actively look to use your body and, move the defensive player, in this instance, off of you. So if you're driving to the basket and the defensive player is playing close, maybe you're body to body, but nobody's winning, nobody's nudging somebody off. and then you dip your shoulder right or left, depending on which way you're driving, into the defender to move him or her back, and then you go up for your shot, you've created contact. Now, if you're making that same move and now that defender is draped over you, trying to push you off the line, off the spot, off the direction you're going in, they're trying to alter it. And in that instance, you are actually trying to counter with your own shoulder or contact. You're basically taking contact. Okay, now I'll give you a clearer picture. If I go up for a layup, and as I go up, the guy or the defender, I'll just say, try to use the defender. The defender jumps and tries to keep me from making the shot by fouling, grabbing my arm. I'm taking contact. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this all up is because when I'm training kids, and a lot of kids will come in and they say, well, they're having problem with contact. So I have to ask them, that are you trying to create separation? Are you trying to, give contact, or is it that you're taking contact? And often I'll get a look like, well, what's the difference? So I have to explain to them. I've seen games, and it's mostly on the women's side. I've seen games in high school where you have kids running into a defender and then trying to shoot a layup, like actively, like the person standing there, and instead of trying to euro, avoid, or do the little jump stop floater, they actively lodge and throw themselves into the defender and then try to shoot a shot. And that kind of stuff is not going to work as you get older, because you start to play against some bigger kids that are more solid, and athletic, and a lot of referees will not call it. They won't even, sometimes they won't even call offensive foul. It's weird, but I would think that it's more of an offensive foul than anything. So that's the difference to me between creating contact and taking contact. Now, you can create contact by, if the defender is on you and you're trying to get them off of you as you're driving, and you kind of lower your shoulder, kind of bump them a little to get off of you. If you're in a triple threat and the defender's overly aggressive, I teach kids to turn and put your leg in between your foot and step behind the defender in between their feet. And what it does is it takes the leverage off, and off of them, you get better leverage, and they have to back up, because if they don't, they're going to fall, right? So that's one way, but that's not like trying to get a foul and then like get to this. Just now, you know what? I need my space. So there are lots of ways that you can create space using your body. It's just weird how some kids don't understand the difference. They think it's the same. Driving into a basket, I got to jump into you and then try to shoot the shot. And a good defender might see that you're finna try to lunge yourself into them, and then they move, and then you're off balance. So I teach kids to focus on the shot. Don't worry so much about the contact, because it's going to happen. And even if the referees don't call it, you still have to make the shot. That's the thing. You're worried about the foul so much that when you get fouled, you're like, oh yeah, that's a foul. Well, maybe the referee didn't think it was enough contact to keep you from making the shot. Maybe the referee wasn't in position. But at that moment, your focus now has to come to making a shot. And if you don't do that, then you're going to miss opportunities to score. So creating contact versus taking contact. I really feel that there's a strong difference. And, when players really start to understand that, I really try to make my players understand it. I think they are starting to be better players and changing their game, and also helping them to play long-lasting, have them long-lasting careers, I would hope. Okay, so that will do it for today's podcast. We will have bonus content. Bonus content will be I'll talk about nature is nature. You know, it's kind of funny what I'm gonna talk about with nature being nature. So if you're not on the bonus podcast, sign up. I'm also gonna talk about, do kids benefit from trainers who have teams, right? So that's a thing. I'll touch on that when we get to it. So I appreciate you guys joining me. I hope, as always, I'm able to put stuff on your mind. And, if you have things that you want me to cover, if you have questions, please always comment. I do get questions from time to time. I had comments based on the podcast where I talked about when kids leave, after they finish their high school careers and now they're going to play college, the effect it have on parents and stuff. And I had a parent respond. So, I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to end it like I always do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.